Hi everyone! Today I'm doing an in-depth tutorial on how to use Tiled in rpgmaker MZ. Tiled is a tile mapping software that offers more complex mapping options than the built-in editor. We are using Visistella's Tiled plugin for MZ. It's free and open source. I'll link it below in the description. There is an MV version of this plugin, but it has more limitations than the MZ version. I'll go ahead and link the PDF guide for that one in the description if you're using MV. Before we begin, a really important thing. If you choose to use Tiled for your mapping, you need to use it for all of your maps in your project. You can't pick and choose. So once this plugin is active, all of the tile sets in your database are essentially disabled at that point. So let's get set up. There is a lot to prepare at first, but then once you're done with your first map, it goes much more quickly after that. First, download and install Tiled. I'll link that page in the description. Then download Visistella's plugin. There are a few files included in the download: the sample project, the Autotile converter, tilesets, and the actual plugin. Definitely make sure you put the sample project somewhere on your computer. You are going to be referencing it a lot. In fact, everything I learned is directly from that sample project. It's really nicely done. Grab the Tiled plugin and also the Pixie Filters plugin and put them in your plugin folder like normal. We'll activate the plugins in rpgmaker, and the next thing we'll need to do is prepare a folder for your maps. Go into your project and make a new folder called Maps. Then we'll want another folder within this folder for our tileset configurations. So let's call this new folder Tilesets. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but this second folder holds the tileset data, not the actual tileset image. Now we'll set up the map. First, we'll make an empty map in rpgmaker. Default size is fine. Then we will make a new map in Tiled by going to File, New Map. You don't have to change anything up here. For the map size, we want the size of the map in rpgmaker, which is 17 by 13. The Visistella plugin does let you use different tile sizes like 16 by 16 and 32 by 32, but we're going to go with the basic 48 by 48 for this tutorial. And press OK. Now we will save it in the Maps folder. Maps must be saved as JSON files. Tiled will try to save it as TMX. Don't let it. Save it as JSON or the game will not load. This is the biggest issue people run into with this plugin. The name is also important. It must match the index number of the corresponding map in rpgmaker. In this case, we are using map 1, so I will just call this map 1. Okay, now all of our mapping is going to be done in Tiled, while all of our events will still be done in rpgmaker. Here's a quick intro to Tiled. I'm not going to go too in depth. You've got the properties panel. This shows the properties for whatever layer you have selected. If you don't see it, you need to go to View, Toolbars, Properties. We'll be using this in the tutorial. We've got your history window, the main map area where you will put your tiles, your layers and objects window are on the side, and the tiles and terrain sets are at the bottom. I usually just pull the tile window out into its own separate panel. And terrain sets are for autotiles like walls and paths, which we will set up later. This is the button for making new tile layers, object layers, image layers, and layer groups. You've also got these tool buttons up at the top that change depending on whether you're on a tile or object layer. So before we can map, we need a tile set. In rpgmaker, tile sets are images that already include all of the collision, layer, flag data, etc. that's stored in the database. Autotiles are also set up automatically when they are in slots A1, A2, A3, and A4. Tiled works a little differently, of course. It still uses the image, but you need to go set up the metadata manually. We're going to use the basic RTP for this tutorial, but you can also make your own tile sets. The maximum size of your tile set must be 1024 by 1024, but it can be smaller if you want to. To put the tile set into tiled, you can either click this button, New Tile Set over here, or we can go to File, New Tile Set. You can skip name for now, and just make sure the tile width and height is 48 by 48. Under Source, we are going to browse and grab a tileset image from our tilesets folder. Your tileset image must be within this tilesets folder, the same tilesets folder that's in your project that you would use for a regular RPG Maker game not using tiled. So I'm going to open outside B, and you'll see that the name is pre-filled. Tilesets in tiled have two parts. They have the actual image, which is going to be in our regular tilesets folder, but they also have the configuration/data file that holds all of the information on that tileset. When we click Save As, make sure you are under your Maps folder that we made in our project, and we'll go into the tilesets folder that we made. So when you save the tileset here, you are not saving the actual image, you're saving its data file. I recommend being very organized here if you can, with lots of different folders, maybe for every zone, because when your game gets big, this folder tends to get a little crowded. And when you want to start moving your data files around, it gets really messy, things break, and it's not fun. Now, just like our map, we need to save this as a JSON. Otherwise, it can be called anything. Just make sure it is JSON and click Save. It automatically opens the tileset for you, and you can go back to your map by clicking Map 1 up here in the corner. Now you'll see that the tileset is in the tilesets window off to the side. Again, I typically have this out and set to a larger size just so I can see what's going on. But for this tutorial, I'll go ahead and keep it small. Now we've still got a few things left to do before we can start mapping. I do recommend opening up an example map from Visistella's sample project. So if I open their folder, open up maps, you can see all of their maps here. I'm a fan of using map 8 for my reference, but you can also use template if you want. And I can double click the TMX file for it to automatically open in tiled. I like map 8 because it shows all of the features in this plugin, such as reflections, over and underpasses like bridges, object decorations, auto tiles, and things like that. Do note that when you open up this sample map, all of that map's tile sets are going to appear here. So you can see that there are quite a few. Do your very best not to use any of these tiles in your new map that we are going to be making. The problem is that these tile sets are linked to the sample projects folder, not your project folder. So if you start mixing files and folders and tile sets that aren't linked correctly, things will get messy and they will break. There is a way to transfer these tiles over to your project, which I'll explain later. Anyway, the first thing we're going to want to do is set up our layer groups, which we will basically copy from this sample map. You'll see there are 4 main folders that we want: under player, same as player, above player, and system. As you can imagine, all the tiles that are placed under player will appear under. All of these tile layers will appear at the same layer, and then all of these tile layers will appear above the player. And then system is going to handle all of the invisible stuff like collision, regions, but also setting the different levels of the map, which we will go over in another video. So let's set that up in our map. You could go ahead and copy these folders and just paste them in the map, but I'm in the habit of making them myself. So I'm going to click this button and go to New Group Layer, and I'll call this below, same, above, and system. When you make these groups, for them to do what they're supposed to do, we need to give them custom properties. These custom properties are then translated into rpgmaker through the plugin and tells rpgmaker how to interpret those tiles with that property. Each layer should have at least one custom property. If you want multiple layers to share properties, then you would put them in a group and then assign the custom properties to the group itself. That way you don't have to set the custom property for every individual layer that you might have. To make a new custom property, we're going to click the plus button here, and you'll see that every custom property has a name, a type, and a value. I'm not going to explain every custom property in the plugin. We'll add them when we need to, and you can check the sample game to see what else is available. For these folders to function like they need to, we are going to use the z-index custom property, which is an integer. And I'll press OK. And I realized I put it on the tile layer instead of the group. So what you can actually do is click that custom property, Control X and Control V. It's very easy to move custom properties around with copy and paste. A z-index of 1 is below the character. I'm going to copy this, paste it on same. The z-index for same is 3, and then above is 4. In addition to z-index, there is also a custom property called priority that gives you more layer level control. So if you had multiple layers under one z-index, you can set their priority to different numbers to determine what is drawn on top. Otherwise, the plugin will render the tiles in the order that they are in tiled. For the system folder, I just copy all of the custom properties from the sample map because there's a lot here. So I'm just going to copy and paste these over. You'll see new custom properties like hidden in game, the collision, and also the logic for going to different levels on the map. Now we'll look at a very important tile set that should be in every one of your maps. It is already open from our sample map, and it is called Tile System 48 by 48. And if I go to Edit Tileset, we can see it a bit better. If I click on any one of these tiles, you'll see that there is a custom property for each one. Each of these tiles has been painstakingly marked up with custom properties. So we really don't want to have to do this ourselves. We're going to want to move this tile system tile set to our project folder. To do that, with the tile set open, which again is open because we have the sample map open, I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm going to find my project folder, go into my Maps folder, and then my Tilesets folder, and I'm going to save it under the same name. But this does not move the actual image over to our project. To do that, we are going to go back to the sample project, go under Image Tilesets, find the tile system. You'll see that there are 3 available. We'll just pick the 48 by 48. I'm going to copy that, go back to our game, image, tile sets, and paste it here along with all of the other tile sets that are in our project. Again, these are all of the images that are in our rpgmaker folder, not our maps folder. Then we have to do one more thing. Go back to the tile system tiled tile set, and you're going to want to go to Tileset, Tile Properties, and under Image, we need to change this so that it is linked to the tile system image that we just put into our Tilesets folder here. And then press OK. And then make sure that you save this. Now we can use this tile set safely within our project. We'll be using these system tiles at the end of our mapping process, but because they are so important, I want to include this at the beginning because it's part of our initial setup. So we could go ahead and start mapping now if we wanted to, but I know that we are going to want to use some Autotiles, so let's go ahead and do that next. Autotiles in Tiled are called terrain sets, and you access them by clicking the Terrain Sets tab, and it will show you all the sets that you have prepared. Once you click one of them, then the Autotile appears here, and then you can just start using it. Of course, I don't want to do that because this tile set is not in our project. These Autotiles or terrain sets work much differently than they do in rpgmaker. The typical format for rpgmaker Autotiles like this is not going to work. You can't just put this into a terrain set and call it a day. If we look at Visustella's terrain set, we'll go ahead and look at this one and click the terrain sets icon up here, you can see how they're set up. I'm not going to explain the logic here. Instead, what we're going to do is copy everything that Vizustella has done for us, move it over into our project, and just replace the image. We're going to want to copy over 3 of the terrain sets that they've set up for us. First, the ground that we already opened. We also want wall because this one is set up slightly different than the ground. And then we will also want auto water. This terrain set is set up just like ground, except these tiles are animated. You make animations by going to the tile animation editor here, but we're going to go over animations in another video. Just like what we did with our tile system tile set, we are going to save these into our project folder and move everything over there. That way we don't have to redo all of this ourselves. So I'm going to save as, find my project, my maps folder and my tile sets folder, save it again as a JSON. I'm going to do the same thing with this one and this one. Then we could go to the sample projects tile sets folder and copy these over, but we're actually going to be making our own, so we don't need to do that. In addition to Visistella setting up all of these rules for us, they also gave us a very nifty Autotile converter, which I do recommend saving on your computer. You can probably use the plugin in your own project, but I think it's much easier just to use this as your dedicated converter project. So let's find what we want to convert. I know we will want grass and a path. I don't think we need the grass to be an auto tile. I'm just going to copy the center square and paste it in our tile set that we're using. I'm going to put it up in the corner. But I do want this stone path. You do not have to use Photoshop for this. You can use any image editing software. All you got to do is copy and paste. In this case, I'm going to layer via copy. It's just the image by itself. I can export this layer as a PNG. If you're not using Photoshop, then just make sure it is its own image here. Then we are going to save this under our Auto Tile Converter. We need to save this under the Tile Converter folder, Input. So what the plugin does is it looks at whatever's in the input and then converts it and puts it into the output. I have a nifty shortcut to one of my project folders here. So under input, I'm going to make sure that this is a PNG, and I'm just going to call it doesn't matter, stone grass. Then you'll want to open the Autotile Converter project file. And again, make sure that under Tile Converter Input, we have our rpgmaker styled auto tile. We'll go to Play, New Game, and then like it says, you do not have to do anything else. Close this, open that folder, and you will see under Output that it made this great little auto tile for us. From here, you're going to want to move this file to another folder, not necessarily your project folder, because we're not actually using this file for the tile set. We'll be using a different tile set for our project tile sets. So to do that, I'm actually going to open the sample projects tile sets. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and go with ground. And I'm going to use this as a base. We're going to drag our stone grass in here. Put it up on the top left corner. And if you want, you can keep the rest. I'm going to go ahead and hide them. And then I'm going to save this as tile auto ground is fine .png, not our maps tile sets folder, but our image tile sets folder. And I'll save it here. Then we'll go back to tiled under tile auto ground, which again has been resaved into our project. I'm going to go to Tileset properties, and relink the image file to the auto tile that we just saved within our folder. And press OK. So now you can see how everything is set up for us. You don't have to do anything yourself. Maybe if you want, you'll change the name of this set from grass dirt to grass stone. And then save this tile set. Now we've got everything set up for the most part, so we can make our map. Before I do, I'm going to go ahead and close the sample project here so that our tile sets are clean. We only see the tile sets that are in our project. As a rule, make sure you do not go over 12 tile sets per map. Do not go over 12. You will get errors in your game, and it won't tell you why. It won't tell you what's wrong. It happened to me, and it actually tells you in the sample project, this NPC use a maximum of 12 tile set sheets per map. So just remember that and you won't come across the same issue that I did. Anyway, now we are going to simply paint our tiles on the tile layer. I already have one here, but you can also go click this button and go to tile layer, and we can name this to stone path, and then this one to grass. Much like parallax mapping, it's very good to be organized with all of your layers. Make sure you're naming them. It will just make your life a lot easier later on if you ever need to edit the map. I'll put the grass tile down first. I'll just click this tile, the grass tile that I put in, and I can paint. Or we've got a very nice little fill bucket here. Then under stone path, I'll go to our terrain sets and grab this auto tile, and then you can just start painting our path. I'm not making a very fancy map in this tutorial, so don't get too excited. I'm really just showing you how it's done. I'm going to make a new tile layer called tree trunk. I'm going to move it to same. I'm going to grab this tree tile, but only the bottom, because I want the bottom to be at the same layer as the player, but then these top tiles will be above the player. So I'll put a tree here, here, and here, and then under above, I will make a tile layer called tree tops. Drag it into above, and then fill in our trees. There is a faster way to do this. It's a little trick that I will explain in another video. I can add some tufts of grass. You'll notice that they're not appearing, and that is because I have the layer below the grass layer. You're not going to see it, so we're just going to drag that up, and now you can see it. I'll add some pink flowers. It's whatever. The last thing I want to go over in this tutorial are objects. Objects are their own type of layer. We would go to a new object layer, and I'll call this decoration. But again, you might want to be a little bit more specific in how you name these. I'm going to drag it onto our same folder. And now you'll see that it's a different type of layer. It's pink. This means it's going to be under our objects pane. And you'll also see that our toolbar is different. We'll want to go to Insert Tile. And then much like our tile layers, we can select anything that we want here. I'll go ahead and click this bucket. And then you'll see that these objects are special. They do not have to align to the grid. You can put them anywhere you want. So I'll put a bucket here. I'll put some wood, I don't know, here. A log can be right next to it. I'll put it on the corner of that path. And some tree trunks, I don't know, right next to the trees here. And some nice red mushrooms. Why not? Each of these objects is going to be its own little layer here, which is actually pretty nice because you can go to this Select Object tool and click one to quickly go to it and move it around if you want to. This is very much like parallax mapping. So I could delete that mushroom if I didn't want it there. I don't have to go searching through all of these layers if I don't want to. The last thing that we have to do is set up the collisions, right? We do not want the player to be running into these trees. Luckily, we already pasted over all of the custom properties under System. So now all we can do is make a tile layer called Collision. Make sure that it is in the System folder. Go to our Tile System Tiles, and we're going to click this red tile here, which you can see has the custom property of Collision Full. You also have the option of using any of these other collisions that are a lot more precise, but we're just going to go with the red normal collision. And then you're just going to paint where you don't want the player to go. What I like to do is go to the System folder and turn the opacity down so that the collision tiles aren't covering things for us. You'll see one of the custom properties hidden in-game is on, so we will not see these red tiles. We could also use any of these other flags. Say we had some bushes or tall grass. We could use the bush flag and color over that. We don't really have any, but I'll use this grass as an example. And that is basically it. We're done. Again, it's not a very fancy map, but Tiled lets you have so many layers that you could add some really cool features to your map. So let's see how it looks in game. We're going to save, go to our project. Again, make sure that the plugins are actually turned on, and then we'll press play to see if it worked. So first of all, it loaded, which is the most common issue that people encounter. We'll check collision. Collision is working. The layers are also working. The tree is on top of our players. And then this grass is, it's hard to see, but it is correctly showing that low opacity effect for standing in tall grass. And that's it. That wasn't so bad, was it? Again, it's a lot of setup. Making Autotiles does take some extra time. You need to manually set the Z index for the tiles, along with the collision system. But again, once everything is set up and you get into the groove of how you're supposed to do this, everything's going to go a lot faster. In a future video, I will show other features that the tiled plugin has, such as reflections, mirrors, different blend modes. You can do some cool stuff with objects that has automatic overlays for you, and some more tips and tricks that I've encountered while making maps in Tiled. Finally, once again, make sure that you go through the sample project. It is set up wonderfully for you. Just press play. It will take you through this building. You can talk to these NPCs and then go into each one of these doors, following the arrows in order. Or simply go to the maps here and check the NPCs that way. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial helped you. If it did, leave a comment below and consider subscribing for more RPG Maker stuff. I will see you in the next one. Bye!